A deal today, as you heard there, between the feds and Alphabet, the company that owns Google, over the government's Online News Act. The legislation, known as C-18, was brought in to force digital giants to compensate media companies, including CTV News, for linking to their content. But both Google and Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram, came out against the bill, saying they wouldn't accept unlimited financial liability for news links. As you heard from the Prime Minister, there's still no deal with Meta, and Canadian news continues to be blocked on Facebook and Instagram. But Google and the government have been in negotiations for months, and today came to a deal that caps Google's financial liability under the law at $100 million annually, indexed to inflation, and keeps Canadian news links, on the search engine. With me now live from the House of Commons is the minister who negotiated that deal, Heritage Minister Pascale St Onge. Hi, Minister St Onge. Good to see you. Thank you for making the time.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Minister, I know your government is characterizing this as a win, but your original estimation of what compensation from Google would be worth was $172 million. Their estimation was $100 million, and that's what you ended up agreeing to. Doesn't that mean they kind of won?
It is a win for Canadian news outlets because, yes, a lot of different numbers have been floated throughout the legislative process, but what we've secured is $100 million annually for our news sector. It's money that doesn't currently exist in the system. It's also a transparent system that is being installed in Canada, where we know how much Google is transferring to our news outlet. This doesn't take into account also all the non-monetary compensation that Google is offering to the news sector, whether it's technologies, access to some marketing strategies, or also transfers for journalists and stuff like that. So we've secured the monetary part, but there's still a negotiation that will happen with the news sector on the rest of the agreement.
But as far as the monetary part goes, with great respect, Minister, there weren't a whole lot of different numbers floated. There was one by your government, $172 million, and one by Google, $100 million. And the deal that you presented to Canadians today ends up agreeing with Google's assessment. What changed for you?
First of all, it never was specific, the portion of that amount that has been put forward, whether it was completely monetary compensation or it included non-monetary compensation or value for referral traffic. So we have specified that part of it is $100 million that is directly in monetary compensation. And this is the first deal around the world that is that transparent, that people know exactly what the amount comes up to. It's a precedent in the world. Last weekend, CBC Radio-Canada published an article that referred to a deal in Germany that was about $400.8 million. So at least in Canada, we now know that Google will be participating in the system for $100 million, and it will be indexed to inflation.
Are you saying all the other stuff that you mentioned still to be negotiated will equal your original estimation of what this was worth in compensation? It'll add another $72 million to the total?
I don't have the amount. What I'm saying is that Google will continue to have news on their search engine in Canada, even after the law comes into force on December 19. What we've secured is the $100 million indexed to inflation per year, and all the other compensation in non-monetary value will still be up for discussion with the media sector.
Okay, I wanted to ask you a bit more about what else you were able to secure with Google, because the other thing I heard you talk about this morning during the announcement, or this afternoon rather, was around the fact that they had requested they negotiate rather than with individual companies with one central body. They had also, though, in their kind of opposition to the bill, as they laid it out in submissions, detailed a lot of other things. For example, serious structural issues that regrettably were not dealt with, this is their words, during the legislative process. They called the bill a link tax that breaks the way the web and search engines have worked for more than 30 years, and et cetera, et cetera. Is there anything else that you essentially conceded to them that we don't know about yet that will appear in the regulations in December 19th? Any changes aside from these two things that you've outlined, the compensation and the one body to negotiate with?
No, this is the most important preoccupation that Google had highlighted around knowing the cap, and they wanted predictability on both how much they would have to pay and also who they would have to negotiate with. So we've simplified the process so that they can negotiate with one collective, and it's very clear the media that can raise their hand and be part of that collective under the legislation, which includes, of course, independent media, local media, media from official languages in minority situation, indigenous media. We've made sure that this deal was not only between our bigger media, but that it was fair and equitable in the entire system.
Can you expand on that a bit, Minister? Because I'm curious to know what the makeup of, or how this body will work, essentially. I know there's a formula that generally will be applied to determine how much, let's say, of the $100 million goes where. But the criticism from the opposition, particularly the Conservative opposition, has been this is about your government deciding who's a winner, who's a loser, which media they like, which media they don't like. How will the makeup of this body address that?
Well, first of all, the government is not implicated in the negotiation that will happen between Google and the collective. What we've set in the regulation is some rules around how this will happen, but any news outlet that raise their hand and want to be part of that collective and be part of that negotiation with Google and that meet the criteria set in the legislation can be part of those discussions. So no, the government is not interfering and choosing. On the contrary, we're making sure that in different countries that have deals with Google's, most often it's the bigger news outlets that have those deals. We made sure that the independent news sectors also has a seat at the table.
But just to be totally clear, there will be no government representation on the body ultimately who negotiates with Google.
No, the sector needs to organize itself in a collective that will be capable of negotiating with Google the final agreement. What we have set in the regulation is making sure that there's $100 million that will be paid to news sector every year, and that this amount will be indexed with inflation. So we're setting the rules on how this, to set a fairer bargaining table between the digital platforms and our news sector, but the rest, it belongs to the news sector itself.
You contrasted today as well the approach you view Google as taking on this endeavor with the one that Meta has taken. You said that Google was more open to conversations. Can you tell Canadians, have you met at all with Meta since you assumed this portfolio?
Well, first of all, what this means, what happened today, is that Google knows that their search engine is better with Canadian news on it. Facebook would be better with access to Canadian news on it as well. Unfortunately, and we're seeing this around the world, Facebook has decided that they would tone down news. In Europe, they announced that they were taking out the news tabs. And in the United States also, the access to news has been turned down. So I don't know why Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg are deciding that their platform is more relevant with only disinformation and misinformation or cat videos. We strongly believe that Facebook is better when people are able to share Canadian news that are relevant to their friends and family.
Minister, my question was whether you have met with Facebook since you assumed the portfolio, not the answer you just provided. Have you met?
Yes, I have
multiple instances.
I've spoken with Rachel Current from Facebook right at the beginning of my mandate, and I've always said that my door is always open. And we were looking for collaboration with Facebook so that they could tell us what their problem was with the legislation, so that we can answer their question like we did with Google through the regulation. But right from the beginning, it seems that they disagree with being regulated in any country, any jurisdiction.
So would you characterize conversations as ongoing, or just that initial conversation that you referenced? I'm just trying to get an idea of the tone and the tenor of negotiations, or whether they're actually even in existence.
No, we've had conversation, but Facebook has made it pretty clear that they're against the principle of compensating the news sector for the value that they bring to their platform, and they've decided to ban the content. My door is still open. We're showing that this legislation works and that platforms are better with Canadian news content on it. So Facebook is always welcome to bring back news.
If you feel as strongly as you do, and I would note for our viewers that the government decided to stop advertising on Facebook, why does your party, the Liberal Party, continue to advertise on the platform and support it in all of what you just described?
Well, you know, the Conservatives are certainly advertising quite a lot on the platform. You know, it's a question that you can also ask to the party itself. The government has taken a strong stance in stopping advertisement on meta platforms, and we're making sure that the government and that the public money is invested in platforms that collaborate in the system and in our media and news sector.
Minister, respectfully, you know, the opposition isn't being interviewed right now. If they were, I could ask them. They also didn't design this bill or introduce it. You did, and you've spoken very at length, you know, a sentiment I think a lot of Canadians would understand about how you view Facebook, but your party continues to advertise on it despite the government saying it wanted to take a moral stance. And are you trying to tell us that that's just because the Conservatives are doing it too?
It's our party that took the decision that government money would no longer go to Meta. So yes, the Liberal government has taken a strong stance on Meta's position in banning Canadian news in Canada.
But that doesn't address the substance of why your party is doing what it is. Are you in agreement with the prospect of continue to advertise as a party on the platform?
I think our party is pretty clear because we directed all public money to be invested elsewhere than on Meta's platform because they are resisting playing around the rules that we're putting in place in Canada so that we better protect our news sector. So yes, our Liberal government has taken a strong stance around that.
Okay, Minister, I'll leave our conversation there. I appreciate you making the time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.